Let's take a look at exactly what this means legally now, an in-depth look, if you will, on this story. Joined, a huge pleasure as well, we've had him here before, John Ngcebetsha from Ngcebetsha Madlanga Attorneys. John, if I may call you John, good morning to you as well. This becomes such a complicated story, doesn't it? We've had a jury acquit George Zimmerman, but now America not happy. They want to relook at the law. What do you make of how the law handled this?
Look, I think the first thing is that if you look at the background of the entire matter, upon the youngster being killed, it takes the state approximately 45 days for them to arrest the gentleman concerned, the accused. That alone raised questions. Eventually they do. When you look at the evidence that was led by the prosecution in the case, the chief investigator, upon being questioned, comes to the conclusion that either the accused is a pathological liar or he's telling the truth. Upon being pressed further, he concludes that on that question, that according to him, he was telling the truth. That obviously weighs heavily on the jury. Put aside the fact that there could have been objection raised by the prosecution to the extent that you can't cast an opinion on that type of a matter. That's up to the jury, because you are then putting undue influence on what opinion, which is their job, to come up with the opinion in the form of a judgment. The jury is composed, as you know, unlike in South Africa, by a panel of people, 6 in this instance, all of them ladies, who are not necessarily legally trained. And in that instance, the factors of the case would then weigh heavily on them. So in the end, even as the case progresses, before it concludes, there's already criticism in the manner in which the case for this youngster is put forward.
And we've now seen that anger spilling out over into the streets as well. We saw Washington, Los Angeles, New York with mini protests coming out, and very upset with the way the jury handled this. There's a call now, and this is why I wanted to speak to you as well, for the federal court in America to get involved. How does that change the way that George Zimmerman and this case has been acquitted of? Now, how could that be different to how it was handled with a jury involved? Because you can't, it's something called double jeopardy. You can't be tried again for the same case.
Yeah. In the US, it works a bit differently. If you look at the trial in the jury system, the state concerned, Florida, it would appear that they applied a self-defense test, which is not quite the same as the one you find here in South Africa, for argument's sake. It's a bit higher here, the test to meet in South Africa. In this instance, we have the accused having sought after the deceased, and in the end kills him after an altercation. Of course, he claims that he was defending himself. Yes. Now, for the matter to be referred to the federal court, one of the things that the prosecution is being criticized for is the fact that they never invoked the racial profiling, so that the motivation for following up the deceased on whatever suspicion that he may have, Zimmerman, that is the basis upon which a motive could have been established. And if then proper and thorough evidence is properly considered, and there is a indication that they should have done that, they would have to then make an application, and then it is that special application that would enable the federal court to reconsider.
So there is an entire process before that can actually just take place, as opposed to just picking it up and going to the nearest court possible.
News that moves. eNCA.com.